Just as any given religious apologist may proclaim the truth of their religion, they almost certainly also proclaim its limitless benefit to mankind. Occasionally, it's proposed that even if no religion were true, that religion is still beneficial to, if not necessary for, the healthy functioning of individuals and the advancement of humanity. Now, there are many ways it's proposed that religion serves this purpose, but here I'd like to focus on how it supposedly positively motivates the behavior of those who adhere to it, as well as discuss whether such motivations are provided by religion exclusively. A common claim is that religion motivates acts of selfless charity and compassion for those in need. After all, there are undeniably countless hospitals, homeless shelters, and charities which were started by religious people. So, in a fashion uncharacteristic to this type of video of mine, I must make a concession before I go any further. Acts of selfless charity can be and are not uncommonly religiously motivated. However, whether or not that type of motivation is exclusively a result of religious belief is a crucial factor in the argument of religion's utility in this regard. And unfortunately for the apologist who chooses to tout this utility, motivation towards selflessness and charity may be found outside of religion as well. Philosophically speaking, it may be gleaned from ideologies like secular humanism, but practically it doesn't seem that such altruism even originates from anyone's own worldview, or even requires sentience for its existence within an organism. Babies exhibit altruism, and so do other animals. No religion required. Just as I didn't deny the existence of religious motivation, I think few serious apologists would deny this fact. What few may realize, however, is that because the motivation of selfless acts may be gained from a myriad of secular sources, religion's power of provoking such motivation is nothing special. Because of this, I'd venture to say that the existence of religion is not actually necessary for the continuation of selfless or charitable acts within our society. But religion is just a better motivator, some might say. It brings out the better angels of our nature. As I like to do as often as possible, let's take a look at any research that may be relevant to this claim. A study published in Current Biology showed altruism to be negatively correlated with religiosity in children. Basically, secular kids were found to be more altruistic than religious ones across multiple countries and cultures. A portion from its discussion section reads, "Here, we show that religiosity as indexed by 3 different measures is not associated with increased altruism in young children. Our findings robustly demonstrate that children from households identifying as either of the 2 major world religions, Christianity or Islam, were less altruistic than children from non-religious households. Moreover, the negative relation between religiousness and spirituality and altruism changes across age, with those children with longer experience of religion in the household exhibiting the greatest negative relations. Additionally, when compared against the least religious countries, more religious countries do not donate a larger percent of their wealth to charity. Going by the data linked in the description, it doesn't seem that religiosity is a primary factor in determining generosity." Whatever this research may suggest, I don't mean to argue that secular people are more selfless or charitable than religious ones. I simply mean to say that religion holds no monopoly on the motivation towards such qualities. Additionally, it should be apparent to anyone looking at this research, as well as any student of history, that religion does not necessarily negate greed either. Allow me to cite the countless conflicts and conquests which were undoubtedly religious in nature throughout history. Whether Christian or Islamic, Eastern or Western, monotheistic or polytheistic, to the victor always rightfully went the spoils. Look, as soon as the distinct historical theme of religious conquest is acknowledged, the conversation should invariably shift from if religion enables greed to how it enables greed. This makes an argument that it actually motivates greed unnecessary to my case here. It's sufficient to observe that religion at least enables greed through its use as a tool of manipulation. And if utility toward a better world is what's ultimately being argued for here, then that historically proven application of religion critically undermines that argument. A similar argument for the utility of religion is that religion motivates or has motivated the advancement of scientific progress and inquiry. I've heard this primarily from Christians and Muslims. Now, this may sound ludicrous to non-religious people like myself, as we're constantly aware that the most egregious forms of science denial typically stem from religious dogma. But allow me to present the justification that many believers give for such a concept. Many scientists throughout history have been religious, and the greatest scientists in history were religious, so religion must serve as a great motivator towards scientific inquiry. In response to the first point, many scientists throughout history have been religious, and because some, like Isaac Newton, identified their religion as a source of motivation toward their work, I'm totally willing to concede that religion can motivate scientific inquiry. However, again, I must assert that religion holds no monopoly here. If it did, we'd expect to see that most, if not all scientists are religious today. And as you may well know already, that is definitely not the case. Scientists, at least in the US, are overwhelmingly less religious than the general population. It's apparent that most scientists gain motivation toward their work from secular sources. Moving on, were history's greatest scientists religious? Two of the scientists often mentioned when this point is made are Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein. I've already mentioned here that Newton was definitely religious as well as religiously motivated in his academic pursuits. However, upon thorough investigation into Newton's writings, it becomes apparent that his religious views may have actually hindered his further advancement of science. Newton posited that the formation of the solar system could not be explained through natural processes and that the stars didn't fall into each other only because God actively restrained them from doing so. Today, we know how solar systems form and we understand why stars don't all rapidly gravitate toward each other and collide. We continued to pursue science and discovered natural explanations for those things. If Newton had not decided that those explanations could not be found, maybe he would have actively continued to study what he didn't understand and make even greater scientific progress than he did. It seems that as much as religion motivated Newton, it also hindered him. His story is not actually a good case for productive religious motivation. But what about Einstein? He used a lot of religious language, so it's been endlessly posited that he was religious. Others asserted his religiosity even during his lifetime, to which Einstein himself gave a response. I think it serves as the best means of debunking their claims. It was, of course, a lie what you read about my religious convictions, a lie which is being systematically repeated. I do not believe in a personal God, and I have never denied this, but have expressed it clearly. If something is in me which can be called religious, then it is the unbounded admiration for the structure of the world so far as our science can reveal it. Albert Einstein, 1954. Finally, as it is likely well known by most viewers of this video, religion has been responsible for the hindrance of scientific progress on countless occasions, from the persecution of Galileo to the protesting of evolutionary theory in public schools to the prevention of stem cell research. Religion has proven itself the ever-present rival of scientific progress. Now, the frequency at which the religious make the last two claims I've addressed pales in comparison to the popularity of the following claims. Allow me to hand things over to none other than Cosmic Skeptic, as I think he could tackle this much more adeptly than I.
Thanks, Drew. I want to continue the discussion by looking at what is perhaps the most pervasive group of utilitarian arguments in favour of religious belief, and that is the moral family of arguments. The assertion is, in effect, for numerous and specific reasons, that religion is useful and perhaps essential to both a functioning society and a functioning individual due to the moral basis it offers and the moral code it promotes. When you hear that religious values must be recognised and implemented in the upbringing of children, their education, and the fabric of the nation in which they live, you're hearing this argument. Now, there are two principal forms that these moral arguments most prominently take as I see it, and I'm going to tackle each individually here. First, that religion and God are the basis of morality, without which morality can't exist. And second, that religion provides essential values that we couldn't do without. So let's crack in. So firstly, the argument for religion as a basis for morality. This simply no longer holds the sway it used to. This is likely due to the increase in religious pluralism and the overall decline of religious belief in total, whilst morality is just as pertinent a social issue as it ever was. The argument claims that an objective moral basis must exist for morality to make any sense, and that this basis must be some higher being in order to have the authority required to be this basis. With that in mind, there are two ways that you can dispute this form of moral argument. The first way is to suggest that the objective basis for morality is not a god, but rather something else, and something a little less supernatural. The obvious contemporary choice of scholar here is Dr. Sam Harris and his book The Moral Landscape, which proposes that well-being is a more appropriate basis for morality. It's a compelling argument, and I've discussed it at length on my own channel before, but it's not the only argument against religion as an objective moral basis. The second contention you can have is that there is in fact no objective basis for morality at all, and that all morality is entirely subjective. Now, naturally, this opens a Pandora's box of problems such as moral relativism and the idea of cultural imperialism. That is, you can't say that female genital mutilation is bad. That's just your culture, your belief. You have to respect ours. And it may seem as though if we view morality as subjective, that this is a fair statement. But it's not, because even if we think morality is ultimately subjective, we can still recognize that all cultures subjectively do base their morality in well-being. And then the rest of Harris's philosophy becomes practically irrefutable. But I'm not going to focus on that, partly because I've discussed it before, but also because even if moral relativism was the natural conclusion of subjective morality, it wouldn't necessarily be any worse or really any different than religious morality. Let me explain. Remember, there are thousands of gods and thousands of schools of theology. Even if 10 people believe in an objective religious morality, they may still all have completely different ideas about what is objectively moral according to each's own god. Furthermore, you may have noticed that any person's god always seems to agree with the person's own moral opinions to an extent that almost resembles the suspicious. To quote Bertrand Russell, people don't have an ethic based upon their theology, they have a theology based upon their ethic. I'll further explain this with a simple thought experiment. If you're religious, then answer me this question, and do so honestly. If your God explicitly told you to murder your family and then go and shoot up an elementary school, would you do it? And don't try to wriggle out of the question. Speaking hypothetically, would you, in the vein of Abraham, commit an atrocity if it was mandated by God? There are, of course, two answers to this. If you would do so, then at least you're consistent, but you've demonstrated just how dangerous the belief in an objective religious morality is. This is harmful to society and therefore negates the argument for utility. If you wouldn't commit the murders, then you're admitting that your morality exists independently of God, and that in fact your God is subject to your own moral code, proving that morality is not grounded in religion, but vice versa. Either way, religion can't be said to be useful as a basis for morality because it's either a dangerous one or not really one at all. So, moving on to the second argument, religion provides moral values to society that we couldn't do without. Love thy neighbour. Thou shalt not murder. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I do not permit a woman to teach or to assume authority over a man. She must be quiet. Wait, that was not supposed to be in there. We'll get back to that. It's been said that without the moral teachings of religion, our society would crumble. Where would we be without the preachments of Jesus, or the Ten Commandments, or the pillars of Islam, if you prefer? If you're going to claim that your religion is wholly responsible for the morality contained within these, you've got a lot of proof to present. It is true that Jesus, for instance, had some decent things to say. The only problem is that somebody had usually beat him to it, such as the Golden Rule appearing in the Analects of Confucius. To claim exclusive responsibility for morality, religion must explain how people already knew of it before the prophets did. There's an example of this contained within the Bible itself, in fact. In the 2nd chapter of the book of Exodus, Moses is forced to flee Egypt after killing a man for attacking a fellow Hebrew. Pharaoh knows that this was wrong and seeks to punish Moses. Moses feels ashamed and guilty for his actions. They both knew that murder was wrong. Remember, this is before the Exodus, before the revelation atop Mount Sinai, and before God had commanded that murder is wrong. The commandment was unnecessary anyway. Moreover, the monotheistically religious have to explain the utility contained within the countless violent, misogynistic, homophobic, and tribalist verses of their scriptures. For those who believe in a different, more benign divine moral code, well, they still have to explain why it is that this code could only have come from their religion. And this has not yet even been seriously attempted, let alone proven.
Thanks for collaborating with me, Alex. If you're not subscribed to Cosmic Skeptic already, then... Oh, you're already subscribed to him? And nearly 100% of my subscribers are already subscribed to him? Then thanks for having good taste, I guess. I'll just move on. Historically, religion has motivated many people to pursue scientific progress, to behave selflessly, and to conduct themselves morally, although it does not appear that it does so more effectively than secular philosophies and ambitions. So it stands to reason that religion could be replaced in society by these secular philosophies and ambitions, and that the benefits we've discussed would endure. Given religion's propensity to also destroy the progress it may initially motivate, perhaps replacing it in society not only could be done, but should be. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you want to hear Alex and I talk more about the proposed utility of religion, then go ahead and head over to his channel and check out the video we've done together there. And if you've come from that video, then let me know what you thought of it here in my comments section. As always, I've been Drew from Genetically Modified Skeptic. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel and check out my Patreon. You can also follow me on Twitter at GMSkeptic. And until next time, everyone, stay skeptical.